All right. On that note, let's get this thing started. Good morning. Good morning. Glad you're here. We've got a good group this morning. So I'm excited to share this message with you. It is crazy looking at the calendar. It is June 7th. So, gang, for all intents and purposes, when you start to take into account holidays, vacation days, the year is halfway over. And it blows my mind because yesterday seemed like we were still in the middle of 2020. It is ridiculous how quickly time is going by. You know, I had a friend several years ago explain to me why time seems to go faster and faster the older you get. It's very interesting. If you think about it, when you're 5 years old and you have to wait a year for Christmas, well, that 1 year is 20% of your life or 1/5 of your life. Whereas if you're my age, almost 52, 1 year is 1/52nd of your life. So 1 year in terms of perspective just doesn't mean as much when you've been on the planet as long as I have. So I guess the bad news is, gang, the older you get, the faster time goes. They say that, and I guess from our own personal perspective, that is true. And this year is no exception to that. You know, we have every single day you get 86,400 seconds, and the fact is, nobody gets more time on a daily basis. Everybody is allotted the same period of time. So it's not a question of how much time you have, really, if you think about your success or what you're trying to accomplish on a daily basis. It's really a question of what you focus on. And so this morning, I'm going to review with you a list of questions. There are 11 questions that I want to give you that I want you to think about, because we're now halfway through this year, and I think it's interesting. You know, if you've read Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, the theme of the book is to think. That's what he's talking about, thinking. Well, I believe that the thinking process begins by asking questions. So I've put together a list of some questions that I want to pose to you that you can ask of yourself so that you can work on ultimately the answers, because answers present themselves to us when we sit down and ask great questions, well-designed questions that allow us to seek out and find answers. Because whatever challenges you're facing, whatever it is that's in your way, the only way to get through that is to simply sit down and ask, okay, what's going on and how can I correct that? You know, what are the solutions? So let's talk about those questions. I've got 11 of them here. Some of these we'll talk a little bit more about than others, but we've got limited time. In fact, let me just look here. We've got 14 minutes to get through this, and plus our affirmations. But let's get through these questions. So please take the time this morning to write down these questions, and more importantly, actually sit down in solitude with quiet and answer these questions genuinely with interest. Because, gang, I don't know where you are this year in terms of your production, but man, I got to believe that in every one of your instances, there is room for improvement, whether you're on target or not, that you still want to get better. So take the time to sit down and really answer these questions and come up with, you know, a plan. You know, based upon your goal for 2021, the first question that I would pose to you is, how many homes should you have sold so far? If you think about the goal that you set at the first of this year, how many homes should you have sold year to date in 2021? And if you say, well, I don't know, that's a good reason we're having this conversation then, because you should know how many homes you want to sell for the year. And you should also know how many homes you've sold so far this year. So the first question is, yes, based upon your goal for 2021, how many homes should you have sold already year to date? If you don't know the answer to those questions, man, find the answers. Take the time to figure that out. Gang, we get what we focus on. Your reality, your existence, your circumstances are merely the manifestation of your thoughts and the things that you focus on. Remember, your thoughts lead to your emotions, and your emotions lead to your actions, and your actions lead to your reality. So if you want improvement in your reality, in your business, the results that you're getting, you've got to take the time to refocus and focus on the things that are actually going to matter. Well, it starts here by simply acknowledging where you are relative to your goals. But be honest with yourself conversation. Where am I relative to my goals? The second question is this: how many homes have I sold? So the goal is, how many homes did I want to sell? And then the second question is, how many homes have I actually sold? And then the third question is, why? Why have I sold that number of homes? Now, the good news is this: if you are beyond your goal, it's a great question to ask. Why am I beyond my goal? How is it that I've already sold more homes year to date than I expected? If you've sold less homes than what you expected, that's a great question. Why? Why is it that I have sold fewer homes than I expected? In other words, identify the primary reasons why you're either ahead of schedule, on schedule, or behind schedule. Because it doesn't matter where you are, ahead, on track, or behind, it's important to know why. Because there's no way for improvement from your present circumstances without understanding why you're getting the results that you're getting. See, if you're ahead of schedule, it's good to acknowledge what it is that you're doing that's leading to that, so you can double down on those things or improve the process there to get even better results. If you're right on track, it's good to acknowledge what it is that you're doing so you can continue and reinforce doing those things. And if you're behind schedule, then it's a great conversation to have with yourself about what it is that I need to do differently. What's getting in the way? So question number 3 is why? Why am I getting the results that I'm getting? What are the primary reasons? The next question is this: what are my historical challenges? I mean, as you think about what you've done so far this year, think about what historically has gotten in the way. That's either held you back or been your biggest struggle, or in some cases prevented you from hitting your goal. So what are your historical challenges? And the reason I think that that's an important question is, if you ask what your historical challenges are, you acknowledge that, then you get to ask yourself, well, which is the next question, which is, what are my primary challenges in 2021 so far this year? In other words, are your historical challenges the same challenges that you're facing in 2021? And if they are, that's certainly an interesting observation. It's like, okay, then I'm not changing my behavior. I'm still dealing with the same issues and not finding a solution to that same old challenge or the same old challenges. So question number 4 was, what are my historical challenges? Question number 5 is, what is my primary challenge in 2020? Excuse me, in 2021. Okay, question number 6. What is, or if you have more than one, what are the solutions to my challenges? So as you think about your primary challenge so far this year, or primary challenges, what is the solution or the solutions to that challenge? I mean, gang, you know the phrase, nothing is going to change until you change. That is so true. So many agents, so many people on this planet wait for things to change externally. They wait for the economy to get better. They wait for a new president to get in office. They wait for another day. They are always constantly waiting for things that are outside of their control to occur, as opposed to looking internally and saying, what could I do differently right now that would get me better results? So what are your primary challenges and what are those solutions? Identify the solutions to your challenges. What is your primary challenge and what is the solution to that primary challenge? If you could just do that today, I want you to think about that. If you identified your single most challenging obstacle that you deal with every single day in real estate and came up with a solution to that, how would that revolutionize your business? Just think about that. And you might say, well, gosh, I know what my challenge is, but the solution doesn't seem to be that easy. Well, gang, I firmly believe that we complicate not only real estate, but life. We always make things much more complicated than they are. See, the solutions to our challenges are generally not that complicated. They're in fact pretty simple. It usually comes down to being more disciplined, for example, or it comes down to, for example, if it's, you want to take more listings, it's getting better at your listing conversation. So maybe the solution is practicing more. It could be that you're not practicing at all. I mean, gang, if you're not getting enough listings, the question I would always ask in that conversation is, well, are you practicing enough? And then you're going out and using those skills on live people, actually calling people and trying to set appointments. Are you prospecting consistently? See, if you're not doing those things consistently, you're not going to get the results that you want. But you have to look for the obvious solutions and then actually apply them. And that's the challenge. Most real estate agents know the solutions or the answers to their challenges, but they refuse to implement them. So maybe that's your primary challenge. Maybe your primary challenge is, how simple the business is, you just refuse to do it. And if that's the case, then I guess your primary challenge is that you have an obstacle to being disciplined and doing the things that you don't want to do. And so the question is, well, what's the solution to that? Well, and I know this is a tangent, but I know a lot of you are dealing with this, that if you're not prospecting consistently, if you're not going out and presenting to people, then you have to find a solution to that. If it means that, you end up doing things oftentimes that you don't want to do, right? Which, if you're going to be successful, that's a fact. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to do things that you oftentimes don't want to do. You're going to wake up some days and not feel like doing it, and yet you're going to have to do it. It's called discipline. It's called accountability. So maybe the solution to that particular challenge is you find some accountability. You find someone to hold you accountable to a particular commitment and have teeth in it, that if you don't do it, you've got a price to pay. That is just an example. I don't know what your specific challenge is, but if you identify it, you can then work on the solution. But man, if you know the solution, stop making real estate and, generally speaking, life so complicated, because the answers, the solutions, are never that complicated. We simply complicate it. And it's usually because we don't like the answer. We want a different answer. We want it to be easier. And gang, look, everybody does. I want it to be easier. If I had written the rules for success, I wouldn't have written them to be so difficult in terms of the process. I mean, they're easy to understand, but to actually execute on them, that's the difficult part. But I don't have the ability to change it, and neither do you. So we can either agree to follow the rules, or we can agree to violate the rules. You got to decide that. But what are the solutions? Identify the solutions to your specific challenges. Here's the next question. What do you believe that you need to do differently? So I know that really relates to solutions, but I want to just ask you just specifically, what do you believe that you, based upon your circumstances, you need to do differently? Identify that. Ask yourself that question. As you take a look at not just the business, you take a look at maybe a relationship, or you take a look at your health. What is that one thing that I need to do differently? That primary thing that if I change that, the way in which I'm thinking or behaving, my process, my protocol, that if I change that, if I improve that, that my results would revolutionize, that I would get a much better outcome. Identify that thing. Okay, question number 8. On a scale from 1 to 10, rate your listing presentation. On a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your listing presentation? See, gang, I firmly believe that most real estate agents focus on working with buyers, even in a challenging market like this, because they don't have enough confidence in their listing presentation or conversation. And so therefore they focus on working with buyers, which in my mind doesn't make any sense. Whether it's in a market like this, which makes absolutely no sense to work with buyers, and you all know what I'm talking about based upon the market circumstances, but even in a normal market. And yet the vast majority of agents focus on working with buyers. Why is that? Because they don't have the skills necessary to feel confident in their presentation, to go out and get a large amount of business, listing business. So be honest with yourself. On a scale from 1 to 10, rate your presentation. How good is it actually? See, if you want to do more business in this market, especially in this market, you're going to have to work with more sellers, because here's the thing, you know this. So many of you have already reached this point. You can't work with more buyers. You simply do not have enough time to work with all the buyers you have, because of the amount of time it takes to work with any one particular buyer. The number of homes that you have to show them, the number of offers you have to make. It's brain damage. You know what I'm talking about. And yet, if you spent your time focused on getting listings and had a great set of skills when it came to actually giving your listing presentation, having that conversation, and you knew that over 95% of the time that you presented, you were going to get that listing, man, imagine what your business would look like. See, most real estate agents don't focus on getting listings because they're not confident in their presentation, because it is the most difficult thing. Gang, it is more difficult to present to a seller than it is to a buyer. And the obvious reason for that is because a seller pays a very large commission and the buyer doesn't. And sellers are going to be a lot more picky than a buyer is in terms of choosing an agent. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you rank yourself? Have a be honest conversation of where your skills lie with regard to the listing presentation. Here's the next question that relates to that. What is best about your presentation? I mean, no question, every one of your presentations could be better, but at least identify what's best about it. And if you'll do that, build upon that. Maybe the best part of your presentation is the fact that you simply have an outline. Great, then build on that. Whatever the best part of your presentation is, anchor on that, derive self-confidence from that. Don't say to yourself, there's nothing good about my presentation. That's not true. Identify something positive. You got to have some sort of a positive foundation upon which you're going to build your presentation. An anchor of this in this conversation about something that's positive that you can build from. There are plenty of reasons out there, if you want to find them, to be negative. Focus on something positive about your presentation and build from that. Don't beat yourself up, build yourself up. So what is best about your listing presentation? And then number 10, what needs most improvement with my listing presentation? Identify that one thing that needs to be improved with your presentation. Maybe you do need to be more scripted. Maybe it is you know the script, but you need to work on the delivery. Whatever it is, what is it about your presentation that needs to improve? And then the final question is this: when did you last record and get feedback on your listing presentation? When was the last time you did that? For some of you, you're going to say never, right? But gang, you can't improve what you don't track. You can't improve what you can't quantify. So the thing that I would challenge you to do is sit down and have a conversation with yourself answering these questions. Look, as quickly as the first half of this year went by, the fact is, based upon what my friend, the physicist, described to me, is this: the second half is going to be even faster. Because the longer you live, each minute in terms of time value is less. So the fact is, you've actually got less time now between now and the end of the year than you did in the first half. And if you want better results, if you want to get different results than you're currently getting, then sit down with yourself and have these conversations. Remember what Napoleon Hill said: the thinking process begins with asking questions. Don't be the average person who simply goes through the routine, doing the same thing over and over again. And like Einstein said, expecting a different outcome and being insane, because that is insanity. Identify what it is that you're doing right, what it is that you're doing wrong, what needs to be improved upon, and then build from there. Course correct. And what you'll find, gang, is in most instances, as you course correct, the correction doesn't need to be that significant. I mean, you think about it. a plane, a commercial jetliner, when it takes off from an airport, maybe going from, say, San Francisco to New York, the pilots are constantly having to correct the direction of the plane. Constantly doing that. They pay attention to that constantly. If they did not, over the course of that 2,300 miles, whatever it is, even if they were off course by 1%, just off course by 1% over the course of 2,300 miles, they would end up not in New York, but somewhere down in South Florida. How many of you are, metaphorically speaking, ending up in South Florida? Because you're not taking the time to understand what's that one minor thing that I could tweak. If I did, it would lead to a dramatically different outcome. Gang, as Napoleon Hill said, think and grow rich. And I'm not talking just about money. I'm talking about richness in terms of your relationships. I'm talking about richness in terms of your health, your mental, your physical, your emotional. See, the thing that makes people who are most successful in life successful, that separates them from the average person, is that they think differently. They have different conversations with themselves. I challenge you, if you want to be successful in any arena and all arenas of your life, then behave as successful people do. Think. The thinking process begins by asking great questions. I've given you a list of 11 great questions. There are many, many more questions you could ask of yourself, especially as it relates to your relationships and to your health, and even more to your business. But this is a good start. This is a good start to begin thinking. And I promise you, if you will do that for the remainder of the year, if you will consciously think about these things. Don't be the average person who gets in that rut of doing the same thing over and over again, just simply trying to survive. That's not you. You're not about survival. You're about thriving. Today, commit to thinking and being focused on thriving, getting better, not waiting for things externally to change so that somehow, maybe, possibly, you might do more production. That is a recipe for disaster. That is what the average person does. And as a result, they live an average life. That's not you. I know it's not you. By virtue of the fact that you're here on this Zoomcast participating tells me that is not you. Now, continue your day doing the same thing, being proactive and thinking and taking action that's consistent with the production you want and the life that you want to live. All right, gang, let's finish this up with some closing affirmations and go out there and be the amazing leaders that you are. Find those people who need to sell their home and get those listings, because that is where the money is and the sanity is in today's business. All right, here we go.